Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about rational exponent equations.
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.
We're given this problem right here, 27x to the 3/2 power, and we got to solve this equation. Well, first thing I like to do here is I notice, we have x to the 3/2 power. We want to get rid of that, get x by itself. So I'm going to use my rules here, and I'm going to take both sides and raise them to the 2/3 power. So what does that do? Well, we know our rules of exponents here state that we have something raised to another exponent, we multiply the exponents, and 3/2 times 2/3 is just, x to the first power, right? Cancel, 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 cancel. The left side here, we have, 27 to the 2/3 power. What is that? Well, that's the third root of 27 all squared. So what's the third root of 27? Well, it's a 3. That's equal to our x here, and 3 squared is a 9. And so our final answer here is just x equals 9. We're given this problem right here, m to the 3/4 power equals 27, and we need to solve this equation. Well, I have a 3/4 power, and our rules of exponents state if I multiply both sides, or raise both sides to the 4/3 power, what happens? Well, we multiply the exponents here on the left, and 3/4 times 4/3 is just a 1. So we now have m to the first power, which is really our goal, getting m by itself. Now, what's 27 to the 4/3 power? That's going to be the third root of 27. Notice the 3 comes down, all to the 4th power. Then we need to simplify. Well, m is just really by itself. The third root of 27 is 3. And we raise 3 to the 4th power. And 3 to the 4th power is an 81. And so my final answer here is just 81. We're given this problem right here. X to the negative 3/2 power equals 1/729. And we gotta solve this. Well, we start with our exponent here over the x, the negative 3/2. I'm going to multiply or raise both sides to a negative 2/3 power. Make sure it goes to both sides. What does that do? Well, our rules of exponents say we have to multiply these two exponents. So negative 3/2 times a negative 2/3 comes out to be, actually a positive 1. And that was the whole point of why I picked negative 2/3. I wanted that. Negatives multiply to be a positive, and 3/2 times 2/3 is just 1. But what happens on the right-hand side? Well, what we have is, we can rewrite this as some square root. And so we have the third root of 1/729, all to the negative 2 power. And there's many ways, different orders in which you can do this, but I'm going to just do it this way. So x is now by itself, coming down. What's the third root of, 1/729? And remember, the third root can go to the numerator and the denominator individually. The third root of 1 is 1. But the third root of 729 is a 9. And now it's all raised to a negative 2 power. And this might be easier to see here. We raise something to a negative 2 power, right? It's a little tricky. It's going to flip this fraction upside down. And so what we have here is this is the same thing as, 9 to the positive 2 power. And what's 9 to the positive 2 power? X equals our final answer, which is 81. We're given this problem right here. 7 equals r to the 1/2 power. I'm going to solve this equation. Well, I start with my exponent, 1/2 power. To get rid of that, I raise both sides to the 2/1 power, or the second power. But make sure it goes to both sides. This cancels out the exponent for the r. 1/2 times 2/1 is just 1. And now we have 7 to, the 2/1 power, or like I said, 7 squared. Let's flip this around in all one big step here. Put r first, don't need the first power. And what's 7 squared? 7 squared, 49. And so my final answer here is just 49. We're given this problem right here. V to the 5/4 power equals 243, and we're going to solve this equation. Well, to get rid of the 5/4 power here, I have to take both sides and raise them to the 4/5 power, like so. That's our rules of exponents. What this allows me to do is get V really by itself. Our rules of exponents say we take a 5/4, multiply it by 4/5, and that becomes a 1. Now 243 to the 4/5 power is a little tricky. This is the same thing as the 5th root of 243, all of that raised to the 4th power. So let's keep on going here. What's the 5th root of 243? If you know it off the top of your head, let me know down below, but I don't. That answer is actually just 3. Then we have to raise that to the 4th power, and we have now 3 to the 4th power here. What's 3 to the 4th power? And that is an 81. And so my final answer here is just 81. We're given this problem right here. N to the 3/2 power equals 125, and we have to solve this equation. Well, I want to get rid of this exponent here. So to do that, I'm going to raise both sides to the 2/3 power. Make sure we go to both sides here. We have n, well, to the 3/2 power times 2/3 power, multiply them out by our rules of exponents, and that's just the first power. So we have n to the first power here. On the right, the 2/3 power is the same thing as the 3rd root of 125. And we take all of that and we square it. So let's keep on going. N equals the 3rd root of 125 is 5. And we square that, and 5 squared is 25. And so my final answer here is n equals 25. We're given this problem right here. N minus 27 all to 3/2 power equals 64, and we have to solve this equation. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this exponent. So to do that, this is tricky here. We're going to take this whole thing and raise it to the 2/3 power. We got to do it to both sides. What does this do? Well, we still have our n minus 27 here. With 3/2 to the 2/3 power, we multiply these exponents. 3/2 times 2/3 is a 1. Now to the right-hand side. 64 to the 2/3 power is the same thing as the 3rd root of 64, all squared. So now we keep going and simplifying. Well, n minus 27 to the first power is just n minus 27. The right-hand side, though, the 3rd root of 64 is a 4, and we still got to square it. 4 squared is a 16. We have an n minus 27. I added 27 to both sides here, and we have n by itself, and 16 plus 27 is a 43. And so our final answer here is n equals a 43. We're given this problem right here. 26 equals a negative 1 plus 27x to the 3/4 power, and we got to solve this equation. Well, we're trying to get x by itself, and sometimes this can be a little tricky. We need to add a 1 first to both sides. Let's bring that over. 26 plus 1 is a 27. And then we bring down the other parts. 27x all to the 3/4 power. Now this exponent is in my way. I need to get rid of it. The only way to do that, really, is to raise both sides by the 4/3 power now. I just flipped the 3/4 fraction. But make sure we do that to both sides here. So what does that do? Well, the right-hand side is really where the magic happens. 3/4 to the 4/3 power, or the exponent to another exponent, our rules say we multiply the exponents. So 27x stays here, and 3/4 times 4/3 is a 1. And that's why we chose 4/3. 27 to the 4/3 power is the same as the 3rd root of 27, all to the 4th power. So now we got to keep simplifying. What's the 3rd root of 27? The 3rd root of 27 is a 3. We're going to raise that to the 4th power. And we don't really need to write to the first power here. So we have 27x. Then from there, 3 to the 4th power is an 81 equals a 27x. our rules say we divide both sides now by 27, right? And we have x completely by itself. I'll put it here. And 81 divided by 27 comes out to be a 3. And so my final answer here is x equals 3. We're given this problem right here. 3,125 equals a negative 1 minus 18p, all to the 5/3 power. I'm going to solve this equation. Well, what I want to do first here is I have a 5/3 power, and I need to get rid of that exponent. So I'm going to raise both sides to the 3/5 power and make sure it's to both sides. The left-hand side, becomes just the 5th root of 3,125, all of that raised to the 3rd power. But what about the right-hand side? When we take an exponent, 5/3, and we raise it to the 3/5, we multiply these exponents. So negative 1 minus 18p is now raised to the 5/3 times 3/5, which is a 1. So now let's go simplify the left-hand side. The 5th root of 3,125 is a 5. We raise that to the 3rd power, right? So the 5th root of 3,125 comes out to just be 5. Raise that just to the 3rd power, bring that down. The right-hand side is just a minus 1 minus 18p. Don't need the first power anymore. 5 to the 3rd power is 125. And this looks familiar now. We have it equal to negative 1 minus 18p. And we're just solving like we normally do. We add a 1 to both sides. We have 126 now equals a negative 18p. Divide both sides by negative 18. And what do we get? Well, p is by itself here. Don't forget that. And 126 divided by negative 18 is a negative 7. And I flipped it over. And so my final answer here is p equals a negative 7. We're given this problem right here. 5 equals 3 plus 4a to the negative 1/6 power. I'm going to solve this equation. Remember, the negative 1/6 power is just to the a, and we want to get a by itself. So we kind of start in reverse order here. We subtract a 3 to both sides, and 5 minus 3 is a 2. Bring down the 4a to the negative 1/6 power. Opposite multiplication is division. Divide both sides by 4, and we have, 2 divided by 4 simplifies to be a 1/2, and we have a to the negative 1/6 power. Now here comes the tricky part. We're going to take a to the negative 1/6 power, and we're going to raise it to a negative 6/1 power. And we're going to do that to both sides. Okay? Well, what does that do? Our rules of exponents, we have our negative 1/6 power. We have that raised to a negative 6/1 power. We multiply them, and that just comes out to be a positive 1. And that was kind of the goal there. Now here's the tricky part. We have 1/2 to the negative 6 power essentially. That's the same thing as with the rules of negative exponents. 2 to the positive 6 power. So this isn't too bad now. We have a now by itself. I'll put that here. And 2 to the 6th power, 2 to the 6th power is a 64. And so my final answer here is just a equals a 64. We're given this problem right here. 4b to the negative 3/4 power plus 10 equals 21/2. And we're going to solve this equation. Well, the first thing is I'm going to subtract a 10 to both sides. Get that over there. We're trying to get b by itself. So we have 4b to the negative 3/4 power. And that's equal to, 21/2 minus 10. And 10 as a fraction is the same thing as 20/2. Okay? And I did that so I have the same base. Makes it easier to subtract here. Keep on going. We have 4b to the negative 3/4 power. And 21/2 minus 20/2 is just a 1/2. That's a little easier to deal with. Now, to get rid of this 4 here, I'm going to multiply both sides by a 1/4. These cancel, and we're left with a b to the negative 3/4 power on the left, but on the right, 1/2 times 1/4 is 1/8. So where do we go? Well, from here. We have b to the negative 3/4 power. I'm going to raise that to a negative 4/3 power, and we're going to do that to both sides. b now is by itself because, with negative 3/4 power to the negative 4/3 power, we multiply the exponents, it comes to be a positive 1. Now here's the tricky part. 1/8 to the negative 4/3 power. That's the same thing as the third root of 1/8 all to the negative 4th power. So let's continue this up here. Well, the third root of 1/8, we take the root, or the third root of the numerator and the denominator, and we can do that individually. Well, third root of 1 is 1. So we have b now equals 1 over third root of 8, which is a 2. Lost my spot here. But that's all going to be raised to the negative 4th power here. So what do we go with that? Well, 1/2 raised to the negative 4th power is the same thing as 2 raised to a positive 4th power. And what's 2 to the 4th power? Well, 2 to the 4th power is 16. And so my final answer here is b equals 16. We're given this problem right here. Negative x to the 3/2 power equals a negative 27. And we need to solve this equation. Well, first thing I notice is a negative out here and a negative out here. We divide both sides by a -1, or multiply by a -1, and really just becomes a positive positive. It makes it easier to deal with. Now I'm going to get rid of this 3/2 power. To do that, I'm going to raise both sides to the 2/3 power. What does that do? Well, x is now by itself, and 3/2 power raised to 2/3 power. We multiply them, and 3/2 times 2/3 is a 1. 27 to the 2/3 power is the same thing as the third root of 27, all squared. Well, let's keep on going. What's the third root of 27, which is a 3? And we still have to square that. And what's a 3 squared? Well, 3 squared is a 9. And so my final answer is pretty easy. X equals 9. We're given this problem right here. Negative 54 equals 10 minus m minus 10 all to the 3/2 power. And we got to solve this. Well, first I'm going to subtract a 10 to both sides, bring it to the left. Negative 54 minus 10 is a negative 64. And that's equal to a negative, don't forget it, m minus 10 to the 3/2 power. Well, I don't like having a negative here. There's a negative being multiplied and a negative being multiplied here. So I can multiply both sides by, well, a -1 if you want, like this. And we get a positive. 64 equals a m minus 10 all to the 3/2 power. A little cleaner here. Let's get rid of that exponent. I'm going to raise both sides to the 2/3 power. Flip that fraction around. By doing that, we have 3/2 raised to the 2/3 power. We multiply the exponents there. So we have an m minus 10, and 3/2 times 2/3 is just a 1. Now 64 to the 2/3 power is the same thing as the third root of 64, all squared. So let's continue to solve this. What's the third root of 64? That's going to be a 4 here, and we got to square that, and that's equal to our m minus 10. Now I'm going to finish up here. I'm going to flip it around so we have an m minus 10 here on the left, but on the right, our 4 squared, hopefully you can see, is a 16. So again, I flipped that around here. We add a 10 to both sides to continue this through, and we have m equals 16 plus 10, which is a good old 26, and that is our final answer. We're given this problem right here. Negative 5,126 is equal to negative 6 minus 5 times 3x plus 22, all to the 5/3 power. And we got to solve this equation. Well, first thing, let's go add a 6 to both sides here. Let's try to get, well, our variable by itself. Negative 5,126 plus 6 is a negative 5,120. And that's a negative 5 right here. 3x plus 22, all to the 5/3 power. Everything still comes down. Multiplication going on here. Let's divide both sides by negative 5. What do we have? Well, negative 5,120 divided by negative 5. 2 negatives make a positive, and we have 1,024. And that's equal to, again, everything on the right that's left. This is canceled. 3x plus 22, all to the 5/3 power. Now we have to use our rule of exponents. If we raise something to the 5/3 power, if we take all of that and raise it to the 3/5 power, we're going to eliminate that exponent. So the left-hand side, 1024 to the 3/5 power is the same as the 5th root of 1024, all to the 3rd power. The right-hand side, the 3x plus 22, our rules here state that we just multiply the exponents and we set it up so it equals 1. 5/3 times 3/5 is a 1. So keep going with the left-hand side. What's the 5th root of 1024? Do you know it off the top of your head? I don't, but if you did, let me know. And that's just a 4. And we're just the 3rd power here. And we have a 3x plus 22. 4 to the 3rd power is a 64. So 64 equals 3x plus 22. Let's go subtract now a 22 to both sides. Running out of room, so I'm going to put it over here. 64 minus a 22 is a 42. And then that's equal to just a 3x. So 64 minus 22 is a 42. The 3x stays here. Divide both sides by 3. And 42 divided by 3 is a 14. And so we can rewrite this if x comes first if we want, and x equals a positive 14, and that is our final answer. We're given this problem right here. 9 plus 5 to the 3rd root of 2m is equal to 29, and we have to solve this equation. Well, first thing is, let's go try to get m by itself. So I subtract the 9 to both sides here, and we have 5 equals the 3rd root of 2m. Oh, that's not, I wrote 25. It's 2m. Silly Sean. Why did I think 5 was an m? Not sure. It's 2m, and that's equal to 29 minus 9, which is 20. Multiply by a 5 here, so let's divide by a 5 to get rid of that. 5's cancel, and with the 3rd root of a 2m is equal to 20 divided by 5, which is a good old 4. Well, the 3rd root, to get rid of a 3rd root, we can take the whole thing and raise it to the 3rd power. They cancel each other out. Just make sure we do it to both sides. So 3rd root raised to the 3rd power eliminates them, and we're left with a 2m here. But 4 to the 3rd power is a good old 64. Divide both sides by 2, and m is now by itself, and 64 divided by 2 is a 32. And so my final answer here is m equals a 32. We're given this problem right here. 3,646 equals 1 plus 5 times 4r plus 17, all of that to the 3/2 power, and we got to solve it. Keep it simple. First thing we do is subtract 1 to both sides. 3,646 minus 1 is a 3,600, and you can guess it, 45. And then we have a 5 comes down here, 4r plus 17 to the 3/2 power. All that stuff. Well, we're multiplying by a 5 here, so let's divide by 5. Let's get rid of it. Cancels out, and 3,645 divided by 5 is a 729. And we're left with a 4r plus 17, all to the 3/2 power. So now from here, we have a 3/2 power right there. To get rid of that exponent, we're going to raise both sides to a 2/3 power. By raising both sides to the 2/3 power, the left-hand side, the 2/3, is the same thing as the 3rd root of 729, all squared. The right side, we have a 4r plus 17. But when we raise these to another fractional power, we will just multiply the exponents. 3/2 times 2/3 on purpose was there to be equal to a 1. Now it's getting easier. What's the 3rd root of 729? Well, 3rd root of 729 is just a 9. We're squaring that, and we have 4r plus 17 right here. To complete it up here, 9 squared is an 81. Separate that out. 81 here, and we bring over the right-hand side, we have 4r plus 17 right there. Subtract a 17 to both sides, just like we normally do, and 81 minus 17 is 64, and that equals a 4r. Divide both sides by 4, and we have r is equal to a 64 divided by 4 is 16. We can write it this way, r equals 16, r being first, and that is our final answer. We're given this problem right here. Negative 646 equals the negative 3 times 65 minus n to the 3/2 power plus 2. And we got to solve this equation. First thing I'm going to do is subtract a 2 to both sides. Negative 646 minus 2 is a negative 648. Then we bring down the rest. Negative 3 times 65 minus n and 3/2 power. Well then from here we have negative 3, right, being multiplied by everything. So opposite of multiplication is division, negative 3, like so. And negative 648 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 216. Negative 3's cancel. And we have a 65 minus n to the 3/2 power here. Well, how do we get rid of that 3/2 power? And that's what we're going to go with here. Well, we take both sides and we're going to raise them to the 2/3 power. Make sure it's both sides. The left-hand side, 216 to the 2/3 power, is the same as the third root of 216 all squared. The right-hand side, we have 65 minus n here, and 3/2 power to the 2/3 power. When we raise an exponent to another exponent, we just multiply them out. And 3/2 times 2/3 is a 1. So let's keep on going. The third root of 216 is a 6. And we just have a 65 minus n here. For space, I'm going to continue up here. 6 squared, I'll write here as a 36, okay? But then we still have the right-hand side of 65 minus n. Got to subtract a 65 to both sides here. And 36 minus a 65 is a negative 29, but be careful, we still have a negative n here. That becomes a positive, right? We divide both sides by a negative 1. That becomes a positive, 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 positive. Let's flip it around, n comes first, and that equals just a positive 29. And so our final answer here is n equals a 29. We're given this problem right here. Negative 3 plus 8 minus 2x all to the 5/4 power equals 29. And we got to solve this equation. Well, first thing I want to do is I'm going to add a 3 to both sides. Let's try to get x by itself as quick as possible. We're left with an 8 minus 2x here to the 5/4 power, and 29 plus 3 is a 32. Now we're in a quandary. We have a 5/4 as an exponent. To get rid of that, I'm going to raise both sides to a 4/5. Make sure it's to both sides here. By doing that, 5/4 power raised to a 4/5 power, we multiply the exponents, and that's just a 1. So we have an 8 minus 2x here, all to the first power. The right-hand side, 32 to the 4/5 power, is the same thing as the 5th root of 32, all to the 4th power. Now from here, where do we go? Well, 8 minus 2x stays there. The 5th root of 32 is a 2. We still have to raise that to the 4th power. We have 8 minus 2x here. 2 to the 4th power is a 16. We subtract an 8. We're trying to get x by itself here, just like we normally do. And we have a negative 2x here is equal to 16 minus 8, which is a good old 8. We divide both sides by a negative 2. And I'll put it over here. X is by itself now. And that's equal to 8 divided by a negative 2, which is a negative 4. And so my final answer here is just x equals a negative 4. I hope this video is helpful for you. And if it was, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this video. This helps us make more free math lessons for you and for everyone else. So as always, thanks for watching.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.